Well, hi, this is John Sarver. Welcome to my solar story, sponsored by GLREA and Michigan Solar Users Network. Tonight, Brandon Knight from Distributed Power is going to talk about a number of his community initiatives related to solar energy. He's been doing just a variety of interesting projects in Michigan. And so with that, Brandon's been involved in this area for a long time. In fact, I can't get you. It's been so long that you've been working in this area, Brandon. I don't even remember when you started, but it's been a long, long time. So with that, Brandon, go ahead and start your story.
Well, thanks, John. It's because you've been doing a lot of work in this area for so long and been a mentor for me and other people trying to get into this industry for so long. So it was 2005 at Urban Options in East Lansing, and I think you were on the board of Urban Options and GLREA, and we're working for the state of Michigan Energy Office, and we were going to meetings together and advocating for this when the price of watt for solar was probably, what, I don't know, $9 a watt or something like that. Yep. So yeah, even meeting you, it's always been about the community. Where I met you, Urban Options, which is now Michigan Energy Options, is a demonstration center for solar technology and energy efficiency and strategies for sustainability that's in the student housing area at Michigan State in East Lansing. So that's interesting how they position themselves as a resource to students at Michigan State. And I was able to walk in the door there and volunteer. And then they hired me to go out and do energy efficiency audits and weatherization upgrades for low-income homes in Lansing. And so I was all into solar, wanted it to grow, but met the reality of single moms in Lansing with 9 kids and trying to talk to them about changing their light bulbs. Realized this was going to be a long process to reach people around energy efficiency and solar. So so I'm a small business owner now. I've been working to get my company Distributed Power going since 2010, and we've really got our traction since the start of 2018. Before that, I started the company, but I ended up working for an off-grid outfit called Zero Base Energy in Ferndale for a couple years. I was involved with Strawberry Solar, which is another installation company based in Detroit. I did some training programs for Michigan Works after I left Strawberry Solar, training unemployed employment seekers, I guess, into solar. And I also worked at Power Home as a crew lead for a month and a half in kind of the in-between period there. And then I felt I had enough requests coming in for me to do installs on my own, and broke off on my own at the end of 2017. Again, I had the company in the background registered, but since the start of 2018, I've been building this full time. We're over 200 grid-tied solar arrays installed since the start of 2018, and I've wanted to get as many people as possible enrolled into DTE's net metering program before it expired, and that was a monumental undertaking, and made a lot of promises to people to get them in by November 5th of 2019. And then sort of transition to focusing on getting as many people enrolled in Consumers Energy net metering program before it expires now. And there is now a similar process going on with consumers, where we're under this race to just get people into net metering before it expires, because it's such a great program. So that's been my focus the last, since the start of 2018, has been getting, my company off the ground as a fully built out, fully realized installation company. We have a warehouse now in Ferndale, and we have 4 crews. And I've been building those crews throughout all of these different companies I've been involved in, and the relationships I have with my crew members and my team. Like, we're a family, and it's been a long process. A lot of patience, a lot of risks that people think I'm crazy for, and but yeah, trying to get this thing off the ground still, and it's still a lot of work every day. So we're electrical contractors, and that's kind of the base of what we are. But a lot of what we do is rooted in the reality that this is for the community, and that a lot of the people that we meet, this has been their lifetime dream to go solar, and we have a lot of responsibility when we get a contract to make this dream happen. A lot of people have been waiting for this their whole life. So when we don't get the project done fast enough, or we have something go wrong or something like that, like, we're messing with people's dreams. So we take that really seriously. I came into it from an activist perspective, and did a lot of community organizing up until 2010, and kind of realized that we needed more companies in Michigan to make this industry stronger. So I went down the path of entrepreneurship. I kind of always wanted to do that. My dad owned a company growing up, so that was kind of always part of my blood, I guess. Was I couldn't work for anybody else. I had to eventually do my own thing. But so seeing a lot of things help with the growth of solar. And one of the things that is helping grow a lot is I'm seeing some really great community initiatives happening around the state, and we've been able to benefit from some of that. And there's a lot of confusion around the term community solar. So we don't have a community solar policy in Michigan that a state like Minnesota does, or Colorado, where developers can build large megawatt solar arrays and then start a subscription service, or sell parts of these large megawatt solar arrays to community members or ratepayers with different utilities. So we're going to talk about community solar as more of community organized solar, not these large community, solar arrays. We're not talking about microgrids or anything like that, but I have a cool story about how some of our efforts in Detroit have led to meetings with DTE around doing some larger community-minded solar projects. So, I wanted to kind of point out this article in my first slide here that came out in Wired magazine in April, and saying that the title of the article is "Solar Panels Could Be the Best Fad Ever." And the article was referencing the growth that happens in a neighborhood once one community member goes solar. It's sort of like this wake-up call in the neighborhood, and where people start to it's okay to go solar now, or because this resident went solar now, oh, I'm thinking about it now. And you're seeing that once one person goes solar in a neighborhood, it sort of wakes up the whole community naturally. So that is happening. And there's some cool, I'm talking to the choir here, but there's some cool infographics that show how solar, sort of spreads and builds. And, for us, like the name of our company is Distributed Power. And, I've always kind of thought about it as a dual meaning. So distributed power, we do distributed power systems. So our projects are shifting the grid towards smaller networked energy systems that the dual meaning of this is that the feeling is that every single person that goes solar is adding to this distributed network, and it's allowing for more democracy, maybe as a term, or more of a voice for independent power producers to be on the grid. So as we are investing in solar arrays and as we build networks of residents and businesses and homeowners that have solar, we are also creating a block of voters. We're building a block of ratepayers. We're building a whole block of people that believe in a distributed grid. And that in turn ideally has socioeconomic benefits and allows us to have more democracy in how we choose our energy sources. So for every array that goes up, we get a little bit stronger, as an industry. And I don't have the references in front of me, but there's some reports coming out now that solar is the most deployed new generation source in 2020 so far, or it's beating coal. So we're really at that point where this is starting to make sense. And my personal experience has been that it's overwhelming right now how many people want solar. And the amount of people that are requesting quotes from our company and how we can handle that, it's really happening right now. And so hopefully it sustains. I think companies like Power Home Solar that have pumped a lot of marketing into the state and elevated solars on people's consciousness have actually helped out companies like us so that more people are aware of it. They get a quote from Power Home. Generally, they'll be like, yeah, that's that. And then they'll go to the smaller mom and pop companies and get quotes that are usually closer to the national average of $3 a watt and things like that. And people are, even in DTE territory where we're having issues with the new distributed generation policy being not as good, people are still doing it. They want it. They want it for reasons that are not just return on investment or payback, which I spent so much time learning how to present it as return on investment and return, and payback. And now it's now like, can you just get it done? And can you get it done quickly? I want them now. Please put them up now. And you're not having to convince people as much or go through these long sales process where you go, people are more educated. And so it's this article, before we even get into these strategies, it's already a trend that neighbors are pushing each other. It's beyond return on investment now. This technology is just something that people are excited about. It gives them control of their future. They can do something about climate change. It just gives a lot of power to the individual to do something about what's going on in our world right now. So I wanted to note the first program that I wanted to note that I'm involved in, and they've actually recruited 10 installers into this program now. When we started, it was just us and Sumter Solar Services that got into this, the Arbor Solarize program. So Solarize was started in Portland, Oregon, a long time ago, and there was a foundation, the Energy Trust of Oregon, that actually backed the Solarize campaign and provided a local incentive as a foundation for anyone in Portland that went solar. The foundation was giving some funding back to those homeowners, and from there, Solarize got turned into a U.S. Department of Energy national initiative, and there was a toolkit released, and there was a lot of efforts to start Solarize campaigns throughout the last 5-10 years. And there was some efforts to start them in Michigan. Ann Arbor has actually hired a community organizer, and they've been organizing stakeholder meetings with installers for 2 or 3 years now. And they've laid a lot of groundwork between the city. Obviously, it's strong with the nonprofits, strong with the GLREA, having the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association having a strong influence, and a lot of the members of GLREA being from Ann Arbor. So, and we know Ann Arbor is very progressive. So, so it's working here. But what I think has, I guess I could take a step back and explain what's going on. So for me as an installer, I sign up for, as an installer, I submit my credentials to Julie Roth, that's the Ann Arbor Solarize coordinator, and they vet us, and then they pair us up with a neighborhood champion. So Julie's job is to recruit neighborhood champions, find somebody from a neighborhood in Ann Arbor that's really, really excited about solar, wants to put solar on their home, but also wants to do significant amount of outreach to their neighbors, and to ultimately have a group phone call where Julie will pair an installer with the community champion, and then there'll be a Zoom meeting scheduled, and the installer will get the chance to pitch to an entire community all at once. And my company has done two of these Zoom meetings, and it gives a lot of confidence for the installer, because the city will actually, and Julie will present for the first half hour, and then she'll pass it to the installer. And so it very much looks like we're part of the city's effort. Like we're step in step with the city of Ann Arbor, and people really trust us because the city already vetted us, and they sometimes they can't even tell if they're working with the company or working with the city. And obviously, eventually, the point of this is to financially incentivize the neighborhood to go solar. So if 3 homes go solar, then if they reach that milestone, then 3 homes get a 5% discount. If 7 homes go solar in that neighborhood, then they get a 10% discount. And if 10 homes go solar, then they get a 15% discount. So, so this was kind of challenging to figure out what our price point would be. Ultimately, we came in with a pitch of $3.30 a watt. When we got up to 10, that 15% became a $2.81 per watt community pricing. So both communities that we did Zoom meetings for got to 10. The first neighborhood got to 10, and they're still recruiting a little bit more. We'll probably end up with about 12. The second community actually had 25 people sign up for contracts with our company, and 2 Zoom calls. We've got almost 40 projects out of these 2 Zoom calls. So the neighbors are talking. We're being held accountable. When someone's array isn't going up as fast as, you know, this person. So there's a lot of responsibility because everybody's watching what we're doing. And our reputation is very, you know, every single time it's like, you know, we're going to the neighbor's house next. So, so it's been, you know, during COVID, it was a lifeline for us as a company, to be honest with you. It really helped us stabilize our job flow, and just wanted to share that this program's going really well. So I've independently had some conversations with when I've started to get enough people in a neighborhood. So I started kind of working on using this strategy in Lansing, where I ended up having sort of a champion emerge, but it wasn't so neighborhood specific. But so I got enough people in Lansing that I ended up giving them all a group discount, and sort of structured it at this $2.81 a watt rate for a black panel, like a black back sheet with a black frame module, 60 cell, like, and if we get a you know, someone open to using clear frame panels, like, you know, that looks silver with a white back sheet and more of the commercial style, generally those are a little bit cheaper price per watt. Been willing to do those at like $2.75 a watt for those projects. So so I think some of the things that are important about it are the transparency, and the, you know, just being able to be entirely accountable to a neighborhood, and just building a lot of trust as an installer. But it definitely seems to work that the more people you organize and the more you kind of bring people together, that that it pushes each other. It's like, oh, well, this person's doing it, so this is the time to do it. And there's always a lot of incentives to get projects done right now. Like, obviously, the one right now would be that we're having a 26% tax credit this year, and it goes down to 22% next year. And if you're in consumers energy territory, there's much more existential threats right now. But in Ann Arbor, it's all DTE territory. So I've been really impressed. And like during this call, I'm not really trying to like pitch my company. I'm trying to share as an installer perspective, just some of the things that I think are happening, and I think are, you know, other cities could organize Solarize campaigns. I think there has been efforts in the past to do these. I think now is the time in Michigan, with the price point of solar dropping, that that this could work for neighborhoods, and Ann Arbor has demonstrated that it has worked. So we're just one company, and we've got almost 40 contracts, and they have now, I think, 10 installers enrolled. So, you know, if every installer averages what we're doing, that's 400 homes in Ann Arbor that are getting solar through this program. And then it pairs with their citywide effort to meet climate change goals, and to be so it's all kind of related. It's this community-driven process, and so that's one thing that I think Solarize might have been thrown out before in the past and considered, and people on this call might have considered it, but I think now it's really working. So the second program that I've been working on, and last week Tammy was supposed to be on the Zoom call but couldn't make it. So I've been working with the Jefferson Chalmers community in Detroit for a long time to for me, I'm interested in making sure that communities in Detroit are not left behind in all this, that low-income communities are being reached. that we're thinking through how to make sure that those neighborhoods aren't behind or left behind in this transition. It's also a frustrating talking point that DTE and consumers will use during lobbying efforts, that low income people subsidize rich people or subsidize more well-off people to go solar, and that they pay these grid fees, and that, you know, it's mainly people that are more well-off that can afford to do it. So I wanted to squash that talking point. I wanted to do something about that. So in 2017, I was introduced to Tammy Black, and she's doing a lot of community work in her neighborhood. And we ended up working with her, and the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History in Detroit had a grant available that, through all these efforts, ended up being an off-grid solar array that powered a community movie theater in her neighborhood. And so we ended up putting 12 panels up and a 12 kilowatt hour lead acid battery setup with a off-grid inverter and, you know, a nice little power station. And that's led to deeper connections with Tammy and different projects. So in the start of 2019, she's her block club leader on the Manistee block, which is a couple blocks east of Chalmers. This is right on the Grosse Pointe border on the east side of Detroit. And she said that she had all of her block club leaders all organized, and they all want to go solar. And how can we make this happen? And so we started working on figuring out how to do 25 solar arrays on low-income homes in Detroit. And that sort of morphed into, well, we can't find funding for this. It doesn't really fit into a power purchase agreement model or anything like that. So instead, we created a kit, a 12-panel kit. We gave everybody the same design. And then we went to work getting the material and getting material at a reduced rate, or constantly finding discounted inverters and discounted solar panels. And we're now at about 20 of these solar arrays are now up. We've been routing the revenue from the project into a revolving loan fund being managed by the Manistee Block Club. And so my company's been basically contributing what it can, labor and material, to get these projects done. And we're trying to see the community load fund. And we're also trying to build essentially a block of people. We're trying to add like consumption monitoring to the system so we can actually see the interplay with the grid, like what our impact is, and then trying to bring all of these neighbors together. So we're still in the process of getting these through the DTE interconnection process. So they're not all up and through that process yet. And some of them got caught in the shift from net metering to distributed generation. But these are ending up being about 3 to 4 kilowatt arrays, depending on what panels we're able to source for the projects. We have been getting away with using string inverters, which are now, you know, we kind of need to be moving on from that. That's more of a technical thing, but you know, roof mount arrays now need to have module level power electronics on them. A lot of these we were able to get in before the end of 2019 and actually get some of them up with string inverters. so we've just been finding any way possible to find equipment, and I think that's another strategy too. Is there's different equipment becoming available off of secondary markets, and there's used panels becoming available now. So there's a lot of interesting ways where if people are open-minded to get these solar arrays up and benefit people and get the cost down to make it possible for low-income communities to participate. Yeah, so the takeaways of that are that it's possible to do solar in low-income communities. We need to be open-minded about how we get them done, and we need to make sure that we're finding efforts to do that. So I feel like personally, if we can get these up, that we're going to attract funding after the fact to replicate it. So if we can get this pilot done, then people will believe in us. They'll see that we put our money where our mouth is. And I hope that opens up conversations with foundations, potentially with funders. You know, I still am skeptical that it will really work for a power purchase agreement model or anything like that. But we did have some interesting conversations with some funders about doing it, but you would have to do it at a much, much larger scale than 25 homes. So this is really the pilot, and the hope it's brought to the Jefferson Chalmers community. Like, people are just so excited about it, and it's just really interesting to see, like, as the architecture of a neighborhood changes, that it changes hearts and minds. So and making sure that we're working with communities of color and bringing those voices to the table, and that we're not just like kind of throwing a bone to communities of color and saying, can you speak at our events, but that we've actually done projects, we've actually deployed solar panels, and that these neighborhoods are actually really seeing the technology and being part of that, hopefully inspiring the next generation that they can be part of solar, that they can get jobs in solar. And you know, it's a slow change, but we have to be doing that work now. So the next thing that we've been doing a lot of work on is working with nonprofits. So sorry for the lack of detail on my slides, but so this is the Ozone House in Ypsilanti. This was recently constructed, the whole building, but it's transitionary housing for youth, disadvantaged youth in Ypsilanti, orphans, and just people that have fallen out of the system. Ozone House is a place that catches them, helps them find a way back into school, or gets them an apartment to live in and gives them a safe place to be. So this was released for an RFP, and so we won the bid for this project. But we also won the bid last year for EcoWorks, put up 40 kilowatts in Detroit at their headquarters. And we won the bid at the downtown boxing gym, which put up 70 kilowatts of solar in Detroit at a youth after-school reading program that they trade boxing training for doing your homework. And we did a project for the Pablo Davis Elder Living Center in Detroit, which is senior living. And so those projects, I think, are more inspirational to the communities. They're really visible. So so I think these are interesting in how we've gone about funding them. So a lot of times nonprofit organizations can't take the tax credit, and in order for these nonprofit organizations to deploy solar, they need the community support, and oftentimes they would do the project if there's a champion that sort of helps make it happen. So if there's nonprofit organizations that you're thinking about that you would want to help, one of the things that we should start thinking about is, instead of just like, donations, if we can put solar arrays up at nonprofits, and we permanently lower their hard costs to run their organization. And I think it's just a great way to pull people together, is to focus on a nonprofit like Ozone House or something like that, and to help them do a project. And these are ways that I think communities can come together to continue to support solar. And that's, the theme of the talk today. And then the last thing would be, and we can kind of open it up from there. So this was a small array we did at the UCC church in Bloomfield Hills a couple years ago. And the congregation came together for a capital campaign, brought the whole congregation together to raise the money for this project. And then I thought what was interesting from there is they basically had a platform to start their own internal Solarize campaign, to then, reach out to the members of the church and to start doing a group buy for the residences and homeowners within the church to go solar. So these are just some of the things that as an installer and some of the work I've been doing that I think have been interesting, and have helped grow, our company, and do some interesting projects, and get into some areas that I think are helping to change hearts and minds around this technology, and making sure that we're including some communities that might be left behind. But also did want to really focus on, from a practical perspective, the Ann Arbor Solarize program. There's nothing really, so I guess altruistic about that. That just works. If you get enough people organized and you work with an installer, and all of the projects are in a neighborhood, then it lowers the cost for the installer. They're going to the same neighborhood every day. If they have service issues at one site, they're already in the neighborhood, or there's some commissioning issue, or you have 10 inspections. You're not driving an hour here and there to get these inspections done. So it really does help the installer be a lot more efficient, get the cost down, and then build a lot of trust between the installation company in that neighborhood. So yeah, that's some of the things I've been working on, and grateful to have an opportunity to share some of those things. And so we could open it up.
Yeah, why don't you end the screen sharing so then you can see everybody, because what we have people do is just on mute to ask you questions. I'll start out, Brandon. As you've, it sounds like business has been pretty good, and you've been, probably doing more work this past year. Have you had any issues with finding workers and staff to do the work? Any training issues, or how is that part of the business gone?
That's been extremely challenging. Finding a workforce that can do roof work and electrical work, those are the two most dangerous trades. Fortunately, we do have our electrical contractor's license. Before, I feel like that's a big issue, is that a lot of the installers are not electrical contractors, and then have to subcontract out the electrical tie-ins, and then these electrical contractors charge insane rates and make it really difficult for the installation company that's doing 90% of the work to get it done. So that's been something that has taken me years And there's people that I identified when I was younger, and I've really taken care of those people. Like, I really built connections with my core team. They've been with me through a lot. I was really into off-grid systems and microgrids before, going on this grid tied thing. So, we're a technical company. We end up doing a lot of battery backup systems now, which get more and more complicated. Definitely very, very fortunate for the team that I have. And I wake up every day trying to stabilize that team and try to keep, my main installers going, making them, putting them in a position to be successful. So I think that's good points, because like right now I've been working with the Michigan Works office in Ypsilanti. There are some Michigan Works funds and within the Michigan Works offices that are all like localized. One of the challenges been so we tried to run a training program in Ypsilanti earlier this year, and the requirements to be part of the Michigan Works program were really difficult. Like, you had to be unemployed, you had to meet certain income requirements, and then you had to pass a proficiency exam too. So you had to be poor, out of work, and you had to be competent to pass. So it was really challenging, and we didn't get anybody through that. Nobody from Ypsilanti that went through, and it was frustrating for the people that got recruited to get into it. So, but if we could unlock those funds, I think that could be a great resource. I'm doing some consulting for some, construction companies that are getting into solar, and I'm seeing, like, I was at a site today that I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So there needs to be, not my crew, but I was concerned, just like wanting to, if I would have been there earlier, I could have caught so many things. But yeah, I think there's a, like when we don't have the state putting up concerted efforts or cities putting up concerted efforts, and you're relying on businesses to fill that gap for training, it's just really difficult, and I think it's been a challenge, and sometimes you just get lucky. One of our guys that's been with us for a long time, he recruited his cousin in, and he was a motorcycle mechanic. So he just came right in, and he just fit in right away, and was a tough guy, and could handle electrical, could handle roof work. But it's tough work, and I have a lot to think about on that stuff. I was at Power Home when they were kind of getting they were ramping up in November of 2017, and I was brought in to be the crew lead for Crew 4. Not intentionally. When I say brought in, I was there during Crew 4 getting built at Power Home, and they were just throwing people out there. People were getting hired, and getting on a truck the next day. I mean, there was some process at Power Home because they're so corporate that they force you to take drug tests and get your U.S. Department of Transportation stuff, and so there's something, but yeah, I mean, you're up like drilling into people's roofs without proper training, or and like the other layer to it is the tie-ins. And I say tie-in, connecting the inverter to the AC disconnect, and then the AC disconnect to the house, and that needs to be done by a licensed electrician. And so in order to get the workforce to do these things and get the cost down, We're now having to have a licensed electrician at every single project. So I feel like California has a little broader of a policy on who can actually do that work. So they have the C10 solar license. And when I've talked with the state here, they're still complaining about the fire alarm license that was put out in like 1992. And apparently there was this whole effort to stop new licenses from happening, but it's restricting the growth of solar. It's restricting how, like that was a huge thing for our company to overcome, was the electrical contracting.
Yeah.
So even if we have guys that can run circles around electricians and have been around the stuff and know how to do it, they have to get, they need to be journeymen. They need to be 6 years in to electrical. I personally don't think you need 6 years of, part of it plays well for a company to have barriers of entry into the market. So once you cross that threshold into being an electrical contractor, you want as much restriction as possible because it stops, whoever from coming into this.
Mm-hmm.
But that does come down to, there seems to be a shortage of electricians. So the training, some of it is we just need more licensed electricians that are sort of geared up for this industry. But also some of it's really tricky stuff. Like I find getting the wire off the solar panels and what we call the home run down to the inverter is really challenging. Sometimes you're up in an attic or you have some complicated EMT work. A lot of times you're trying to hide that with a flex conduit run through the attic. You're up in someone's insulation. You need to be properly outfitted with the right equipment so that you're not breathing in insulation. You also need to be trained to not step through somebody's roof and damage their roof, and you're doing a solar array and all of a sudden you have some untrained person up there that steps through the ceiling. There's drywall everywhere and you got a whole other problem, and this has happened. So yeah, I think, I don't know, John, I feel like it's a struggle because the state's not,
right.
We have to have like a more concerted effort. And just one more thought on this, and because I really kind of passionate about this area because I feel like my path was really hard, like getting into solar in 2005, and I had to fight my way in like tooth and nail to get into this. And like, there wasn't any training. Like the only trainings that were available were to go pay $1,000 and go to a 40-hour crash course, like up in Traverse City, or go to Wisconsin, the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. And, it's a big gap. And especially with this industry basically having unlimited growth potential because we're only at like 1% penetration with solar, and it's going to be the most dominant energy source. So I'm open to that. Want to hear more about that. It's a big gap. We don't have enough trained people.
Yeah.
I think all installers are looking for good help, and it's really difficult to find.
Yeah, what you said doesn't surprise me, but I wanted to kind of get some confirmation of how challenging it is. If anybody has any questions, just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask Brandon. David?
Brandon, thanks so much for a really interesting seminar, and I'm quite impressed at the diversity of kind of projects you've been involved in. I'd like to know if you've had any projects where you did work with a PPA model.
So I've worked with Rob Rapson's group from Chart House Energy. So he will work with you to set up a power purchase agreement for a nonprofit organization, and he'll kind of develop it in Rob's way, in the Chart House way. And sometimes it's been a little over my head how they've developed those things. But I have worked with him and been the end installer for several of his projects where he was able to essentially monetize the tax credit through tax equity investors and get the cost down for the nonprofit. I did also work with Collective Sun on EcoWorks. So they don't do a power purchase agreement, but they do something similar with a type of agreement they've made themselves called a solar power agreement or something like that. But with Collective Sun, if you get approved, the nonprofit organization pays you 85% of the full contract value, and then Collective Sun will own the array for the first 5 years, and they'll do like a tax equity flip at the end of that 5 years. And so they pay the installer the last 15% direct. And then in the case of EcoWorks, they funded their 85% with a Michigan Saves loan. So that Ascentium Capital commercial Michigan Saves loan, so they paid for it that way. But my company is mainly design build, and since I really got on my run at the start of 2018, I've done less than 10 commercial projects, since the start of 2018. So almost all of our work has been in the residential market, except the ones I shared in the presentation. So Downtown Boxing Gym, they opted to not use Collective Sun because they didn't feel comfortable, and they also opted to not work with Chart House Energy. So I don't know why they went that path, but I also was like, it's your decision. I tried to present a couple options to them, and they didn't feel comfortable with either path. EcoWorks felt comfortable with the Collective Sun path. And I've worked with the Synergy guys, so that CCB project in Bloomfield Hills, that actually was a power purchase agreement set up by Prasad and Vamshi from Synergy. So I've been around it, but I haven't been structuring them myself, and I don't have the network of investors for that yet. I'm more like in the field, more doing the electrical, doing the technical side of things, in hopes that I get a chance to spend a couple years learning larger financing and power purchase agreement models. But I haven't developed one myself yet, but I have been around projects that have been enabled by it.
Brandon, my name is Seamus Norgood. I'm a professor of environmental sustainability studies up in Petoskey, and there's two things we're working on that I wondered if you might be available for in some way. One is the college that I teach for, North Central Michigan College. We've approached them. We've had a solar installer approach them, and the faculty, vice president of faculty, doesn't think he's kind of shy on, doesn't think that there will be enough students wanting to enter the training or enough demand. He's concerned that there's just going to be a handful of, the installer needs a handful of technicians, and that's it. I'm just wondering if it would be reasonable to engage and somehow engage you in discussion, maybe and bring up north or something. If you thought, or we thought, or we could establish some kind of data or indication or trend to say that no, you will have a lot of student demand, a lot of demands for the jobs up north, Traverse City, Petoskey. So that's my first question.
Okay. Well, my company, Distributed Power, we haven't been so active in Traverse City. When I was with the Strawberry Solar guys back in 2017, we were more active in Traverse City, and in fact, we were getting a lot of traction. So I saw, I don't have like the bandwidth to do Traverse City at the level that you need to. So, you know, I don't know how many people would be cycling through the program, but it's chicken and the egg stuff. Northwest Michigan College was huge, and you know, in Traverse City, they were one of the first ones with a renewable energy certificate program or associate's degree, and that was one of the places that you would go to if you really wanted to get the degree. I think they now have one of the more built-out labs. They have several arrays up there. They've been able to use demonstration projects to have not only, you know, I don't know exactly what the college program has, but they were able to generate a lot of revenue by having the lab and having installers go up there, and people that wanted to get in the industry, doing weekend trainings, doing week-long training, 40-hour trainings up there. I was part of a lot of those. I would go up to Traverse City and get trained. So it actually was originally, it was kind of like the area you would go to get your solar training in Michigan. GLREA was sponsoring 40-hour training courses up there and whatnot. So I don't know. It seems like it's really growing, both at the residential level and at the commercial level and at the utility level. So I think that personally, I think you should get prepared, that young people want to get into this industry. One of the things that I think has been, you know, as an installer, it's sometimes been tough to translate these classroom, you know, book level trainings when it really is a type of trade. You really need to be in the field. You really need to be apprenticing. So, you know, I would love for the community colleges to have some sort of more, you know, like you really should be in the field. Like those 4 years or 2 years that you're getting, you know, you're getting classroom work, because installing solar, especially residential, every house is so different. But you do start to get used to being at these houses, and you start to see these different situations happening. So, whereas like the NABCEP level, like solar training, yeah, you learn what the 120% rule is, or you learn, you know, positive and negative and DC stuff. But hey, now with SolarEdge systems, the DC voltage stays safe, and you use module level power electronics, and it's much more accessible for, you know, for certain things that are in the NABCEP training. A lot of that can be learned in the field. So, I think that we're short on staff members helping process building permits, electric permits. We're short on staff members processing interconnection applications. I think that also the solar industry is going to be more dynamic with electric vehicle chargers coming in play and battery backup. So, so I would love to talk with you, and I'd love to kind of figure out if it would work. So it's what's the name of the community college in Petoskey again?
North Central Michigan College.
North Central. Yeah, North Central. Okay. And the one in Traverse is Northwest, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I think absolutely. You know, the community colleges are probably the best place for solar education programs, because I don't think it warrants a four-year degree. But you know, if you could get some basic level of electrical in, you know, I was at Lansing Community College in 2005 and 2006 when they were trying to roll out the first generation of alternative energy programs. The best part about that was just the straight hard electrical classes. And they had a great electrical lab. So yeah, I think we do need these training centers. I oftentimes would drive to Custer, Wisconsin, to go to Midwest Renewable Energy Association's great training. There's just nothing better than what they have in the Midwest. That's where you got to go. You got to go to the middle of Wisconsin, to the middle of nowhere, to get to the best lab for installers. And I think that Wisconsin's industry was ahead of Michigan's for a long time, because Midwest Renewable Energy Association had that lab there, and they had a lot of mom and pop solar installers getting off the ground because of that resource. So not only for youth and students that want to get into it, but I think that there's entrepreneurs that want to get into it too. So obviously I can talk a lot once we start getting into this. So I'll cap my answer now. What's the next question?
Well, thank you, and I'll make this brief, hopefully. And I'm working with a group on Beaver Island. I have a nonprofit on Beaver Island, and we're spearheading. We got a small grant to spearhead working on renewable energy generation on the island. The island has a 400 year-round residents that suddenly is skyrocketing with environmental migration from the coast, property sales. And there's a lot of interest, and we have 2 townships, both supervisors are interested, and also our school superintendent. They're all environmentally minded, and so looking at both a community-wide solar project, maybe anywhere from 5 to 50 acres for the microgrid, to feed in. We're part of Great Lakes Energy, and we have a board member who's a clean energy advocate from Groundwork Center for Resilient Communities.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
And so we got a lot of good players, and we're just at the beginning talking about this community-wide solar project. And I wondered if that, in any way, if you could see yourself as being a useful consultant in something like that, or but the other thing is we're also looking at individual residences, and I love what you've offered in terms of having a champion in the community. We've got some potential there too. So that's just something to talk about later. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm chasing down opportunities. So I would go anywhere for a project. We've had I've been surprised that when I look back at our run the last couple of years that we got a lot of business the way that we did. Nobody even knows who we are yet. We've done no marketing. I'm just out, I guess, hustling a lot on the ground, meeting people, getting projects going, building partnerships. So yeah, it's really, I would be up in Traverse City getting as much going as I possibly could. I just have been surprised how busy we've been in Detroit, Lansing, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Battle Creek, Jackson. So everywhere is growing. So the only thing that would stop me is I don't want to let you down. I don't want to overcommit and not be there for you if it really gets a lot of traction. But the other side of me is like, I want to do it. That would be amazing. So that's kind of the types of projects that you dream about, is doing Beaver Island. So yeah, that would be great. I'd be very interested in talking with you about that.
Well, definitely. I can get a hold of you through this link or something, or just distributed power or something.
John, I'm Brandon at distributedpower.net, and John, how are we doing the contact information after the call? How do we do that?
Well, you've given your email, but if people need to follow up, they can always just kind of send me a note, and I can provide information.
So they could just route it through you, and then you
Sure.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
that's
could-
just,
If there's an
yeah.
inquiry, they could, yeah, obviously they're getting messages from me, so I can just, most likely just forward their message directly to you for you to follow up.
Yeah, I don't want to lose Beaver Island, John, so make
Sure.
sure,
Okay. Well, you know, I've got about 10 after, I guess we have 10 after 8. I guess we have time though, just maybe for one more question if there is one.
Well, thanks, but I'll just say
ask.
thanks. I'm gonna hop off. Thank you so
Yeah.
much,
Hey, thank you very much,
John.
Brandon.
John and Brandon.
This has been a great discussion, and you've kind of described a whole bunch of interesting approaches and projects, so appreciate it. Hey, thanks again.
yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you all. So keep up the good work, John.
Yep, sounds good. Take care.